I'm the Scrub and you're here for one reason. Hello Majestic Imperial Theatre Company. Welcome to Kugane. Don't think I'm the best person to invite you into the city, but here we are. What? Do I want to know about the Zodiac Brave story? Not really, I've already completed my Aroma-Born relic weapon. I'm sure you can tell the lovely folks here. Oh, you're also required for the Shadowbringer's relic too? Why do we want to return to Ivalice? No one played tactics. Time to learn about the Royal City of Rabanastre. Simplified. Head up the path to the first boss. Mateus will spawn in 5 ice sprites and begin the fight. When they are defeated, they will explode in medium-sized AoEs that will give anyone hit by them the debuff of Sleep, which will render you unable to move or perform actions, but this debuff is esunerable. The boss will move to the north side of the room and cast Unbind. An ice dancer will be spawned in the middle of the arena with a coil of ice spiraling out from the center. A lot of small water orbs will spawn onto the ice coil along with a number of targetable aquaspheres and small water spouts. I would recommend splitting into your alliances. A at the bottom left corner of the arena, B at the north, and C at the bottom right. If a water orb isn't popped when the ice dancer floats through the orb, it will turn into an ad called Ice Slave, which is just another problem for this phase. When you run through them, you'll be hit with a debuff of Drenched, which will cause you to be frozen if you're still on the ice coil when the dancer goes past. The aquaspheres will need to be focused down quickly. If they haven't been destroyed when the ice dancer floats over its location, it will turn into an ice boulder and add extra damage for what comes after this. The water spouts will need 3 players to stand in them. This will make them disappear. If you don't eliminate the water spout, they will be frozen into small Blizzard 3 pillars and tethered to random alliance members. If this happens, the Blizzard 3 pillar will need to be destroyed, or else the tethered players will be turned into snowmen once the pillar's cast of White Whisper completes. The people turned into snowmen will pursue other members of the raid and cast Frosting, which will create a purple wispy medium-sized point-blank AoE. If anyone is in this AoE, they will also turn into snowmen, and it can snowball from there. Flash Freeze is an untelegraphed cleaving tank buster, so try not to stand with the tank. After the dancer has reached the end of the coil, Mateus will cast Rebind, fuse itself with the ice dancer again, and clear the arena of the ice spiral. It will then cast Dual Cast. Mateus will move to the northernmost point of the arena, spawn in a number of proximity markers, and start casting Blizzard 4. You'll need to get to a far corner away from the proximity markers to greatly reduce the damage to you. But because we outgear this by a pretty large amount now, this shouldn't do a whole lot of damage unless you're doing this on minimum item level. After a short time, Mateus will engulf the arena in a darker glow. Every player will get the debuff of Breathless. If your Breathless stack reaches 10, you will instantly die. To avoid dying, you'll need to kill a Flume Toad, wait a couple of seconds, and a small air bubble will be created where they die. This air pocket will reset your Breathless stack back to 1. During this phase, several players will be targeted with a narrow straight line AoE. If these AoEs touch an air bubble in any way, the air bubble will pop and disappear. More toads will spawn in, but if you get an AoE, reset your Breathless stacks and stand off to the side. This is usually where Mateus will be defeated, but he has a few extra mechanics. When the arena returns to normal, every player will get the debuff of Drenched. Several players will get an Ice Orb tethered to them. These orbs will move slowly towards the tethered player. The orb won't do anything except follow you, and also, periodically, cast narrow conal AoEs. If these AoEs hit anyone, it will instantly freeze them, so you'll need to point the tether away from the rest of the party. If you still haven't managed to kill Mateus by this point, he will become untargetable, move to the middle of the arena, and encase himself in a shielded water spout. A bar labelled Mateus's Ether will appear. If this bar fills, you will wipe. 3 ads will spawn in. You'll need to separate into your alliances and take 1 ad each. If the ads tether together, they will get a 90% damage reduction buff and become near impossible to kill. While you're killing these ads, a number of ice sprites will spawn in around the boss. Kill them quickly and watch out for their medium-sized explosion AoEs that will put you to sleep if you get hit by them. Once everything has been defeated, Mateus will perform his ultimate of Frost Wave. If you manage to get to the ice orb tethers again, there will be AoEs underneath alliance members which will create a water orb above them. They will splash onto the ground and leave a lingering AoE. If you run through this AoE, it will give you the Drench debuff and an esunerable dropsy dot tick. Mechanics will repeat until Mateus has been defeated. Take the jump pad and head down the stairs. Pull the 3 bandits and the black chocobos. Watch out for the straight line AoEs from the bandits. After everything has been defeated, more black chocobos will continue to spawn in until a red chocobo appears.
No! God, please, no!
This will create a proximity marker at a random player's feet. Get as far away from this marker as you can to reduce the overall damage to you. The treasure coffers will become mimics. Just avoid the AoEs from the mimics, kill everything, and the wall will be destroyed. Second boss time. Quake 4 is a pretty good first person. What? I've already made that joke? Ah, damn. Quake 4 is a room-wide AoE. 1 player in each alliance will get a medium-sized tracking pink and purple AoE underneath their feet. If you fail to get out of the AoEs in time, it can easily cause enough damage to kill you. The boss will move to the middle of the room and cast Control Tower. This will create a black circle in the arena that will have a totem rise out of it. The boss will always give a knockback from the center of the black circle, so you can't automatically die from the totem spawning in, and knockback immunity doesn't work. The boss will then slash and cut the totem diagonally. The totem will then fall in a straight line AoE in the direction of the slash. It might be hard to see at first, but it's in the direction of where the tower slides slightly before falling. You will have plenty plenty of time to move to the side of the totem as it cuts and falls. If you get hit by the falling totem, it will instantly kill you. The boss will then become untargetable, reappear at one of the sides of the arena, either on the west or east, and start casting Extreme Edge. One of his blades will be on fire. You will need to get to the side of the arena of whichever blade is not on fire. If you fail to do this, it is a nasty hit along with an incinerable flesh wound dot tick. Hushmal will then return to the arena and cast Earth Hammer. This will start to have earth rise up in the air from a corner in the arena. You will want to get away from this, as a few seconds after the hammer is created, it will slam down onto the ground with a short proximity marker telegraph. The boss will then move to the middle of the room, cast Command Tower, and knock everyone back to the outer wall. This is his add phase, as there will be an added bar labelled Mana. If this bar fills, you will enrage and have to start again. The Command Tower will create 3 conal AoEs around itself in a triangle pattern with a safe zone between each one. Just avoid them as best you can. Sand Spheres will spawn in and begin casting 2 dust. If this cast finishes, it will create a hard-hitting room-wide AoE that can easily wipe the group if you aren't careful, so make sure that you focus down these spheres. If you get a medium-sized AoE around you with a marker above your head, just move away from the rest of the group to avoid hitting anyone else. When the Command Tower has been defeated, Hushmal will perform his ultimate. Control Tower will now spawn 2 totems instead of 1. Again, there is plenty of time to recognize and get to a safe zone to avoid the falling totems. Rock Cutter is a heavy-hitting cleaving tank buster, so don't stand with the tank. Earth Hammer will now spawn 3 pieces of earth instead of 1, so you'll really need to get away from these, as it can now easily one-shot you. As these fall, he will cast Summon, which will spawn in 2 rock golems. They will continuously cast Demolish. Every time the cast finishes, they will perform a room-wide AoE, get a damage up, and grow in size. Destroy them as quickly as you can. After this, the boss will move to the middle of the room and cast Submission Tower. I'd recommend for the Alliance to split into their groups. A in the top left, C in the top right, and B towards the entrance. 3 towers will be created and have straight line AoEs that meet in the middle of the arena. The boss will then jump away and create 3 sand spheres, 1 in each sector. Destroy the sand spheres as fast as you can. As the towers fall, they will create a lingering fire puddle, which will give you an unincinerable burning debuff if you walk through it. 1 random person in each alliance will get a stack marker. Group up to share the damage. You cannot stack these, as if you take 1, you will get a magic vulner. If you take 2, you will instantly die. This is why we separate into our alliance groups. Once the spheres have been defeated, the fire AoE will dissipate and mechanics will begin to repeat from here. Exit out of the arena and head up the stairs. Kill the 3 bandits. The treasure coffer will open and out will pop 2 chimeras and an Archaea demon. The breaths from the chimeras are all conal AoEs that you'll need to avoid. Ram's breath will give you an incinerable heavy debuff if you get hit by it, and Dragon's breath will give you an incinerable paralysis debuff if you get hit by it. The chimeras also have Dragon's voice, which is a huge donut AoE that will give anyone hit by it an incinerable paralysis debuff, and Ram's voice, which is a point blank AoE that will freeze anyone hit by it for a few seconds. Both of these 2 voice casts are interruptible. The demon has a cast of Unholy Darkness, which targets a random player with a medium-sized AoE at their feet, and this cast is also interruptible, and a massive conal AoE called Karma. Just move out of it to avoid it. After defeating these enemies, jump down the hole in the ground. Move forward and you'll be taken through the waterways into your alliance's section. Interact with the waterway gate lever to open the door. Alliances A and C will have to follow the path, and Alliance B will have to dive underwater and swim through the opening under the bridges until they can surface. All 3 alliances will need to interact with the passage controls at the end of their paths to continue. Head down the waterway until you come to the next jump pad and arrive at the next boss, Rofakal. The main tank will be hit with Crush Helm. This is a 5-hit tank buster. The first 4 will be small hits that will each give a stack of an incinerable physical vulner. The 5th is a much larger hit, but it can be mitigated or even timed with a good healer Asuna cast so it doesn't hit that hard at all. One player will be marked with a red marker above their head. This is usually the farthest person away from the boss. The boss will then target this player with a tracking straight line AoE to their position called Chariot. The boss will then gap close to this player, knock them back slightly, and then turn to a random player and cast an incredibly large cleave called Cry of Victory. If you are caught in this, it will give you a Vuln stack. The easiest way to avoid giving half of the alliance a Vuln stack is to run close to the boss or into the exact middle of the arena while the rest of the alliances stay close to the boss. This will give anyone who will be in the AoE a little more room and time to be able to move into the safe zone. Crush Weapon will target 1 person in each alliance with a tracking AoE. There will be 3 hits. If you get the AoE, just move away from the rest of the group to avoid hitting anyone else. Getting hit by one of these AoEs is quite a heavy hit. The boss will turn to a random alliance member and cast Trample. This is a figure 8 movement with the starting position being in the direction that Rofakal is facing. The figure 8 will appear briefly as a blue outline. There are 2 safe spaces inside the figure 8 AoE, but if you are standing a little bit away exactly on the side of the boss's hitbox, you'll be perfectly fine. If you get hit by Trample, it is a heavy hit and a damage down for 8 seconds. There will be multiple untargetable clones that will appear on the outside of the arena as the boss will become untargetable. These clones will create straight line AoEs through the middle of the arena and leave 2 safe zones on opposite sides. You should start moving to where the first clone spawned, as this will be the best chance to move quickly to the safe zone right beside it, or towards the last clone if you're already too far away from the first clone spawning in. If you do get hit by a straight line AoE, it will give you a Vuln stack and a knockback. When you get Rofakal under 55%, it will move into the middle of the room and create 3 hexagons on the floor. You'll have to separate into your alliances with A in the bottom left, B up the top, and C in the bottom right. 3 Archaea demons will spawn in and a bar labelled Ethereal Acceleration will appear. If this bar fills up, the ultimate will wipe the group. After a few seconds, the hexagon will turn into shielded walls, which means you'll be stuck and unable to help other parties once the walls are created. If there aren't enough people to defeat a demon, it will almost always be a wipe. You'll need to defeat the demon in your space. While this is happening, Rofakal will become untargetable and start start cruising around the arena. If you are in his path, he will knock you back and stun you for a few seconds. The demon will only perform a targeted point-blank AoE and a conal AoE like earlier in the raid. When all three demons have been defeated, Rofakal will fly up into the sky and circle the arena. Eventually, he will stop and perform his ultimate. This ultimate is sort of like a straight line proximity marker. The further out you are to the side of his attack, the less it will hit you for. So if you have weaker gear, I'd advise to get out to the side. Following this, Rofakal will return to the arena. It will cast Embrace and create several small blue circles on the ground that will eventually turn invisible and pulse occasionally. If someone walks over a circle, it will expand into a larger AoE and give anyone in the AoE an Assunerable Bind debuff. You can still perform actions, but you are unable to move for several seconds. Sometimes when Embrace is cast, there will be medium-sized straight line AoEs that run parallel to each other through the middle of the arena. You will have plenty of time to get to a safe zone, but just make sure that you don't run into a hidden circle. Pomp and Circumstance is a proximity marker from Rofakal's position. Move away from this to reduce the damage to you. Eventually, the boss will cast Dark Gyesh, which will cover the room in a large shadow. Rofakal will disappear, give everyone a bleeding debuff, and also create many dark circles. You'll see that the circles are interactable. You don't stand in a circle, instead you'll need to interact with it to effectively turn off the shadow. When all of the circles have been interacted with, everyone will lose the bleeding debuff, the room will light back up, and see that clones have spawned on the outside. They will perform their straight line AoEs. Move as quickly as you can to the closest safe zone. If you don't interact with all of the dark circles, it can wipe the group. Rofakal will repeat mechanics from here until he has been defeated. Walk over the jump pad and head up the stairs to the final boss. When you fail an avoidable mechanic in this final boss, you'll be hit with a stack of Unnerved. This is a 90-second debuff that acts like a Vuln stack, but you can only get 3 of them. As soon as you get 3, you'll get the debuff Crave, turn into a chicken, and run in a random direction for 7 seconds. Crippling Blow is a tank buster. Crush Weapon is the same as the previous boss. A 3-hit tracking AoE at that player's feet. Soulfix is a medium-sized point-blank AoE around a Garth. Fire 4 is a room-wide AoE. A Garth will flash one of 2 faces on the screen, either an angel-like face with white eyes or a demon-like face with red eyes. If the white-eyed angel appears, you'll need to obey the command that will be happening over your head. It will either be Flee, indicated by these arrows in a circle with a triangle place symbol in the middle. This will just mean that you'll have to be moving when the timer expires. Or Turn, which will have this eye inside of a no symbol. This will mean that you'll need to not be looking at the boss when the timer expires. If the red-eyed demon appears, you will need to disobey the command. Regardless of which one you get, you can stand perfectly still while continuing to look at the boss and you'll be totally fine. The boss will cast Judgment Blade and spawn 4 square AoEs on the floor, which will create a lingering AoE puddle. If you step into this, it is a nasty bleeding debuff. 2 players will get a symbol of blue swords over their head. After a few seconds, wherever these players are standing, they will get a plus of straight line AoEs running north, south, and east-west through their position. The easiest way to combat this and maximize the safe zone is to stand directly in the middle of the arena if you get this marker. Following this, the boss will disappear and create a proximity marker in one corner of the arena. Everyone will need to get to the opposite corner and as far away from this marker as possible. When the proximity marker goes off, a Garth will return to the arena. He will cast Royal Blood and coat the floor in a bluish aura. Several players will be tethered to shades that will rise out of the ground. These shades will need to be grouped up and AoE down as fast as possible. If you don't kill them, they will explode. While you're destroying these, a Garth will turn to a random player and cast Unrelenting. This is a fan of narrow conal AoEs with a safe zone between each one. You have plenty of time to get to a safe zone if it's aimed towards you. After all the shades have been defeated, a Garth will become untargetable and a bar labeled Emptiness will appear. Each shade will transform into a shard of emptiness and begin to fill the bar. You'll need to target and destroy the shards in order to stop the bar being filled. This is why we group them up as much as we can to make it easier to nuke them all down. When all of the shards have been defeated, a Garth will become targetable again and perform his ultimate, which is called Dark Ultima. The outside of the wall will now start glowing. If you run into this wall, you will turn into a zombie and start attacking your fellow party members before self-detonating and dying immediately. If you turn into a zombie, there is no recovery, meaning that this is now effectively a death wall. A Garth will then cast Gnawing Dread. This will give everyone the debuff of temporary misdirection. A spinning pointer will appear above your head. Whenever you want to move in a direction, you will move in the direction of the pointer instead. Just try your best and time the pointer to move in the direction that you need to so you can avoid the AoEs of Unrelenting and Soulfix. He will then cast another Gnawing Dread and have a small circle at one point on the outside of the arena for you to get to. It is a little tricky, but you do have a little bit of time to make it. Healers, if you see someone struggling, try and target them and rescue them into the circle. If you are outside the circle when the move goes off, it will give you a nasty hit and a bleeding debuff. A Garth will also cast Trepidation, which will spawn in several meteor towers for one person to stand in. There will be a few, but everyone can spread out and let the ranged magic or healers take care of the meteors. If no one is standing in a meteor when it hits the ground, everyone will get a stack of Unnerved. Mechanics will repeat until the boss has been defeated. Congratulations, you have completed the Royal City of Rabanastre. My name is The Scrub. Thank you for watching.